Howdy, gang. Oh, let's bring this in a little bit. That'll make it easier to hear me. We are talking about the Q1 earnings, which should be being posted shortly. I appear to have no one in here yet, so I'm just going to kill some time real quick. Let's make sure we're looking good. Yeah, looking real tasty. I'm going to adjust my microphone delay offset to better match the delay in my capture card. There we go. There we go. That should improve it. Yeah. Oh. Hiya, Tech Fixer. Welcome. I'm not sure I've seen you around. Maybe not recently. How is everybody? So, while we're waiting, I figured we'd go over the questions from Say. Should I resize this a little? Make it a little easier. Some of these are great questions, and some of them are terrible. Thank you for the sound check. So I'll just ask you, Tech Fixer 2012, since it's just you and me so far. Looking good. Everything's green. How do you think Tesla plans to secure raw materials to scale to extreme size? Because I know the answer. By securing long-term contracts. Glencore for cobalt. Nickel from New Caledonia, among other places. Nickel supply deal with Vale. Lithium supply contracts from the world's largest producers. What else we got? 5-year supply from Liontown. Yeah, all this stuff. These are all the ways they're securing their future. What's that? And for that matter, let's go further downstream. Tesla has secured rights to 10,000 acres in Nevada, where it will produce lithium from clay deposits using a process developed by the company. But so far, people don't do that because it's expensive. It's cost prohibitive. Hello, Gil. Good to see you. If they actually have done this, developed a new cost-slashing lithium extraction process, that could be a game changer. But the fact that we haven't heard more about it tells me that even though it's less expensive than other methods of extracting lithium from clay, it may still not be as cheap as just getting it from large deposits, from salt water, etc. Hiya, MD Hofsty. I'm glad you could make it. Thank you for our conversation earlier. MD Hofsty, if you sent me that image, I would like to get into it. Matt Hofsty has a very small channel that does some looks at the financials and whatnot. And I'm a fan of his, so I would like to incorporate his estimates into this live stream if possible, because I don't do financials. It is not my core competency, and I like to focus at what I'm good at. Let's get back to see if there's any other burning questions. Is there a proposed stock split ratio? Does it matter? I haven't heard anybody suggesting anything under 5-1, but even 4-1 would be better. I feel that the current stock price on a per share basis is difficult for many people, including those in the employee stock purchase program, who would like to get shares more frequently rather than having to save up their small percentage of a paycheck or whatever. There's a lot of reasons to split. I've heard crazy numbers, as high as 100-1. I think that's too high. Not for my taste. I have no preference, but I would like to see it split. My son would like to buy stock in Tesla in his retirement account, which he has not yet opened because he just turned 18. 2 days ago. Yesterday. He's a 419, baby. Could not hold out for the magic number. But for a kid to get $1,000 to buy a share is difficult. What do you guys think about the stock split? What are they going to do there? And MD Hofsty is on the rapid refresh, checking to see if we got our shareholder deck. And I'm going to lean on your expertise a bit on comparing how that worked out compared to Wall Street expectations. How are the current 4680s performing versus the expectation set during Battery Day in terms of expected range increase and cost per kilowatt hour? By the way, hello, Wendelin. Good to have you here. I will check that map. There it is. Okay. Real quick on that, because I'm going to grab this. Should I do that? Yeah, I'll do that. Cost per kilowatt is still probably outrageously high because it is still a new line. In terms of the battery yield and whatnot and performance, I assume it's right on track because they knew what they were doing before they started doing it. So this is courtesy of MD Hofsty. Get back over here. And by the way, jump in and tell me if the numbers drop so we can look at them. Okay. What did they actually deliver? Yeah. Other predictions, Dave Lee, Rob Maurer, and the analysts. Oh, wow. They are right in there together. Interesting. Boy, they are right in there together. Matt's prediction. Okay. Gross revenue. Is that right? Anyway. They just dropped. Oh, of course they did. Of course they did. Bop, 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 bop. Oops. Okay. Well, that's all right. Let's get to it. Okay, shareholder deck. Boom, here we go. What's the early word, guys? What's the early word? Let's see how that looks. That looks small. A little better. First quarter was another record quarter by several measures, such as revenue, deliveries, operating profit, and an operating margin of over 19%. Our outstanding recourse debt has fallen below 0.1 billion at the end of Q1. Public interest in a sustainable future continues to rise, and we remain focused on growing as fast as reasonably possible. Cool. Expansion of our production capacity is core to our decision. Yep. Challenges around supply chain have remained persistent, and our team has been navigating through them for over a year. Yeah. In addition to the chip shortage, the Rona has shuttered operations in Shanghai. We'd like to thank everyone who attended our factory opening events or watched live at home. It was exciting. We're excited to see people so passionate about mass manufacturing and a sustainable future. It really is insane. The number of us who were happy just to be there. Exciting. Okay. Automotive revenues up QOQ. Yeah. Of which regulatory credits, wow, that's a humdinger. 679 million. Legacy guys, wake up. You are giving Tesla the money they need. Just look at the past year. What are we at? 1.6 billion? 1.6 billion. That's more than phase one of Shanghai cost, guys. You could have built your own factory for the money you're throwing away. Yeah. Oh, so pretty. The street was predicting 300, says MD Hofsty. These are very hard to predict. Very hard to predict. Total revenues up. Gross profit up. Gap margin up. 29.1 on the gap. That's pretty. Operating expenses down. Down from the previous quarter. Interesting. Slightly up from a year ago, but you're making more cars with less operating expenses. Adjusted earnings before interest, taxes, deductions, and amortization, $5 billion. MD Hofsty says, I should have thought VW would be spending more in China. I don't think their sales have performed the way they thought they would. I think they started in China and found that it's not as easy as just making an electric car available. There are a lot of electric cars available in the China market. Earnings per share, $2.86. What was the expectation? Does anybody remember? I think it's on Matt's slide. Where did I hide that? All the way over here. Earnings per share. Whoops. That's helpful. Your prediction of 23.21. Okay. Okay. 250 versus 233. And well, Matt, you beat the analysts. I mean, it's almost insulting to say, to like offer that as a compliment, because those guys, not good. Not good. I am so happy for you, Matt. I am so happy that you got it so, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. You see, you guys watch these videos, all 4 of you, because you're in the weeds, man. You're deep in it with me. And it makes you smarter than the analysts. You guys can see things that they can't. It's cool. Improved. Our operating income improved to $3.6 billion in Q1, resulting in a 19.2% operating margin. This profit level was reached while incurring SBC expense attributable to the 2018 CEO award of $48 million. Oh, SBC expense. Operating income was primarily impacted by growth in vehicles, increase in average selling price, reduced cost of goods sold per vehicle despite inflationary pressures. So once those are down, the price margin could get fatter. Lower stock-based compensation expense for now. Just wait until the next batch. Oh yeah, no, they're already counting those. That's right. Increase in regulatory sales credit sales, rising raw material, commodity, logistics, and expedite costs to the downside, and increase in operating expense to the downside. Quarter-end cash increased by $0.3 billion to $18 billion. I think we might see an announcement today about a new factory or two. Maybe not in new countries, but $18 billion cash on hand. Got to spend it on something. Am I in focus? We'll find out. You'll let me know. Yeah, 233. Was the street was estimating 233 per share. Boom. Model S and X production 14. So yeah, we know that we had a pretty good handle on those. Days of inventory 3. Days of inventory 3. So here's the thing. When you buy the parts, the metal, the goods, the everything, generally you get net 30 terms. As long as you pay that bill within 30 days, it's as if you paid cash on the spot. So that means that all the inventory that they have. They're not stockpiling it. They build the car, they sell the car, and before that bill comes due, they have the cash in hand to pay for that car. That's part of the reason their cash on hand is so massive, is because they're able to move units into customer hands before the bill comes due. Now, that's not universally true, of course. Some parts have longer lead time than others, but 3 days of inventory on hand is very lean. Solar deployment is down. That's disappointing. Storage deployment is down. That's disappointing. I would have missed on these, which is why one reason I don't estimate with the, especially the storage, with the mega wall, mega pack factory coming online, and the big deployment that we saw parked outside of Giga, Nevada in the drone footage that I think was posted by Sawyer Merritt, who, if you don't follow Sawyer Merritt on Twitter, he's amazing. Oh, he's so amazing. He kind of tweets for a living. He does all kinds of analysis, and he's a must-read sort of guy for this stuff, I think. Supercharger stations grew about like usual. Supercharger connectors increased a little less than I would have expected. Now let's look at our installed capacity. Shanghai, over 450,000. Can we update this, guys? Can we use a more realistic number, since they made 70,000 in December alone? Putting them on pace for, what would that be, 920,000 units or something? Yeah. Berlin and Texas, early ramp, no stated capacity. And, of course, all of these. Yeah. Berlin, we saw reports they're already at 350 a week. I was expecting a little more than that, to be honest. Which is, yeah. MD Hofsty says, holy crap, solar went down to 48. I had it at 78. Energy was at 846. I had it at 878. So, again, Matt, that's why I want to lean on you more heavily in the future. Whether that's to benefit your channel or both our channels or whatever, you have an insight that that I do not. That is not in my wheelhouse, and I appreciate that. Megapack is in full production here at Gigafactory 1, Nevada, but we are chip constrained. Oh, an employee. Very cool. I went out to see the factory in June of last year. Yeah. I made it as far as the guardhouse. You can see it over the hill. It's ginormous. It's so cool. So cool. I envy that you get to be part of something this big and awesome. I do not envy you living in the desert. My people, historically, come from very damp and dark places. Autopilot and FSD. Oh, interesting. Day after the Super Bowl, huh? Gross orders, the Super Bowl effect, the day after. So every ad you saw for an EV at the Super Bowl was an ad for Tesla. That's just how they do it. I wish other manufacturers would, instead of just speaking aspirationally and saying, oh, cars, huh? How about cars? Cars are cool. Tell me what your car is. Sell me on more than the brand. Let me, talk your 0 to 60. Talk your range. Talk your sustainability. And I love the people who complain endlessly about how Tesla, their mining is destroying the world, to say nothing of what ICE cars are doing. These people give a free pass to all the other EV makers. Makes me think, maybe there's something more to it. Oh yeah, rich man bad. TechFix, D-Shift Energy Maintenance Technician. I don't know what that position is. Energy Maintenance Technician. You'll have to tell me. Or other people in the comments can guess. There's very few people here, but I gotta tell you, you are my favorite people because you could be anywhere right now and you're here. And that's, I don't know, it's really cool. It's really cool and it means a lot to me. And if there's one thing that I learned from the trip to Texas, it's just how awesome you guys are. It's how much the community is worth, how much it means to me. I really appreciate that. FSD beta development continued with 7 updates. Our team continued to work on reducing disengagements, particularly on unprotected left turns and smoothness of the ride, through reduction of slowdown events. Phantom braking. I did get to experience phantom braking with autopilot, not with FSD. I've had an FSD beta ride once, only once, but it was about 2 hours long, all around town, just in circles, having a wonderful chat with Bob. Bob's a cool guy who drove down, made a 2-hour drive down just to let me experience FSD beta. See, did I tell you guys are awesome or what? Oh no. Oh no. Yeah. So, TechFix is saying that he works on the machines that make the machines inside the machine that builds the machine. That's a lot of layers, my friend. It's too many layers. I knew a guy who worked there named John. Yeah. Don't know if he still does. I was talking with his sister Sandy. She was saying, yeah, he works out there. I think he does such and such. And I was like, no, he probably does such and such because that's a battery factory. But, you know. Diversification of battery chemistries is critical. So, yeah, we're talking LFP. Tesla gross vehicle orders in the U.S. Super Bowl effect. Wow. Wow. Energy storage deployments increased 90% year over year. That is good. Mainly driven by strong Powerwall deployments. As demand remains substantially above capacity, growth has been limited by ongoing supply chain challenges. Yeah, are you going to make... What's a Powerwall? Couldn't you make 5 or 6 Powerwalls for the batteries of a car? I guess if you're chip constrained, the answer is no. I guess it depends on what chips are available. How they manage their supply chain is an absolute mystery. CapEx, capital expenditures only $1.76 billion, which is down from the previous 2 quarters. I suspect... Does CapEx include factories? I should know this. We just ran an interview series with Matt Smith from Good Soil Investments. Good Soil Investment Management Partners, I don't remember, where I asked that very question. But it's been a very busy couple weeks for me, and my brain is a little fried. Solar deployments decreased 48%, caused by import delays beyond our control on certain components. Yeah, we got to get the ports sorted out, guys. And I don't mean you, and I don't mean Tesla. I mean the ports. Services and other gross margins remain close to break even. Not bad. Hey, a lot better than negative. Improvement was driven by strong used car sales as well as growth in merchandise. Strong used car sales is code for selling vehicles that came off of leases, I imagine. Our insurance business continues to expand with launches in Colorado, Oregon, and Virginia. In these states, Tesla acts as the insurance carrier, which means we are the underwriter and bear the financial risk. Now, they know what they're doing. I personally would not go that route. I would be a reseller, but they know what they're doing. CapEx is everything that's not a maintenance issue, we believe. Yeah. We have sufficient liquidity to fund our product roadmap. Yes. Long-term capacity expansion plans and other expenses. There's Berlin. First deliveries. So cool. Berlin. Body shop. Cyber Rodeo. Literally in this picture, I am just out of frame. Just out of frame. over here. People were saying, look up, there's a drone show, which is over by where the fireworks we could see just over the building, but the building is so massive that the drone show, which also took place right here, could not see it. Hello, who is this? What did you miss? Good numbers. We're leaning a little bit on MD Hofstede's estimates, which he shared with me prior to today. And of course, he beat Wall Street, because I would have guessed right in line with Wall Street. I would have thought they would have nailed it. They did not. Oh, pretty place. Have you guys seen Joe Tetmeyer's video from yesterday? I tweeted it today. He shows what a small fraction of the factory the party actually took place in. You can jam 10,000 people in just like 10% of the factory without it feeling crowded. It's monumental. Looks like customer deposits went up $200 million from previous quarters. That's a lot of money waiting for deliveries. Yeah, well, if you've got a 10-month backlog, how much is the deposit? Is it $5,000 when you actually order a car? Who can tell me that? Body shop. Yeah, simplification. That's what it looks like. 171 pieces, 2 pieces. And I know there's rumor that they want to cast the whole car, but I don't know how that would be beneficial if the battery pack is already a structural element, because the battery pack already needs a lot of reinforcement. It would just be redundant. So I'm not sure how that would help. And also, well, what if we made the crash rails? No, they need to crumple. They need to absorb shock. Because if you just transfer all the load in there, the occupants get thrown around. There's a movie I saw in Driver's Ed called Dice in a Box. Wear your seatbelt, because without it, you are dice in a box. And it was gruesome. It was really brutal. I've tried to find it since then without success. $250 is all? Well, that would mean they've got like 1 million cars on order. I mean, that sounds right, actually. Wow, that's a lot. Vehicle deliveries, slightly up. Operating cash flow, slightly down. What's this one? Net income. Boom, golly. This is a trend I like to see. Netflix. And by the way, that Netflix, that's 800,000 orders. Yeah, that sounds right. That is about a year of production by some metrics. Plus, you got to factor in all the $100 on the Cybertrucks, of which there's $1 million, $100 million, $150 million in Cybertruck pre-orders. Yeah, the Netflix situation to me was a matter of time, because there are better streaming services, unfortunately. Disney Plus has Disney, Star Wars, Marvel, Muppets, Pixar. What did I forget? Right there, you're talking some of the absolutely hugest movies ever made. Yeah. Debt is going down. Yeah. The debt is going down. What page is that on? We'll go look at it. Vehicles, operating cash flow, net income. Financial statements. Oh, I see. Debt's probably going to be right here, isn't it? There it is. Liabilities, etc. Make this a little bigger if we can. That's not going to help. Liabilities and equity. 11. 11 billion. 5.9. Oh, there we go. Debt and whatnot. Yeah, it's looking good. It's on the balance sheet. Oh, net cash flow is up. I mean, this is all very pretty. I don't know what else to say about it. Maybe you guys can help me decode this bad boy. Any other surprises in here we should be aware of, that we should be mentioning? We can go back to addressing the say questions. Why don't we do that? If there's stuff on here you want to see, let me know. At Cyber Rodeo, Elon mentioned that a futuristic driverless robotaxi is on the roadmap. When can we expect more details? And when will it be unveiled? I think not until after FSD is achieved, which Elon has suggested could be this year. But I feel like I've seen that movie before. It may not be. And I don't think they'll start making it until they are absolutely 100% there. So if that means the first year of robotaxi is all 3s and Ys, so be it. I believe the robotaxi will be the same thing that's used in the boring tunnel, and that platform could be used also for passenger and cargo vans. Maybe a new SUV that is cheaper than the X, because those Falcon Wing doors do not pay for themselves. Still got viewers. That's nice. What is Elon's long-term commitment to Tesla? Is he willing to sell stock to fund other ventures? Well, what he does with his stock is kind of his decision, is my opinion. What is his long-term commitment? Well, he's in a contract still. He has to not only reach milestones, but then stay with the company in a leadership position for a substantial amount of time after that in order to make that, for them to vest. So it depends on your definition of long-term, but I think what we're seeing as the company grows is how well positioned they are for the next generation of top leaders to handle important parts of the business. It's no longer necessary for him to sleep on the factory floor to ensure the survival of the country, of the company. By the way, where the hell is everybody? They're sleeping. Well, the problem, Daniel, is that this is the second channel, and a lot of people don't know it exists. Let's move that. Better. What is the current run rate of 4680s in Fremont and at Giga, Texas? And what do you expect them to be by the end of the year? So I think that was addressed in one of the interviews he did, maybe the TED interview, that by the end of the year we could be seeing 10 gigawatts to 100 gigawatts out of these places. We believe Fremont is probably spooling up at about 10 gigawatt hours of capacity, but I'm not sure. At what rate do you expect Berlin and Austin to ramp relative to Shanghai? Are you able to leverage learnings from them, or are the processes substantially different? So Shanghai Phase 1 was a second-generation factory. Shanghai Phase 2, best we can tell, is the current generation of factory, the sort of thing we see in Berlin and Texas. Multi-floor, amazing use of vertical space. I think it would be crazy to believe that they did not learn lessons from the ramp in Shanghai for the Model Y. I believe that's absolutely what happened. They learned from it, and that's what they're doing. But the ramp rate is a different issue. Berlin's got a problem. Their batteries come from Shanghai, and Shanghai has been closed for weeks. If they're not out of batteries, they're almost out of batteries. And it's a problem. Do you ship them in from Fremont? Can you get a ship there quick enough to matter from Fremont? I don't know. That's why they really need to get hustling on that 4680 building in Berlin. The ramp in Austin, they have their battery line. It is running. We don't know what the capacity is. I think Austin will, by year end, have produced more vehicles than Berlin by a good margin just because of batteries, even though it started its ramp a little bit later. What is the goal for the next 5 years? Really? Sell a bunch more cars, sell a bunch more megapacks, sell a bunch more solar, get FSD out. What am I missing? You know, it's all that. Gil is still here. Daniel's still here. Well, more viewers than before. Very cool. What do you think? What do you think is missing from this? What is the goal for the next 5 years? I mean, isn't that like a question for Google? What is Tesla construction team busy with these days? Are they planning expansion of existing factories or the new set of new gigafactories? If factories are the product, we would like to see a factory announcement before the next model. I think we may see an announcement today. I don't know if that's true. It may not be an announcement for a whole new factory, but it may be an announcement of an expansion of an existing factory. So what are the teams working on? There's never a shortage of work. They're still expanding in Shanghai. They're almost out of footprint upon which to expand. Texas, they've started new pilings for what we believe will be the cathode building in the northeast corner. They're expanding. And yeah, there's still work ongoing in Berlin. And I think Texas and Berlin are going to expand, continue expanding, even as new factories are announced. Because once you've got your whole supply chain in one place, it's easier and less painful to expansion. TechFix is saying that there could be a Giga Nevada expansion. And TechFix might have a reason to know that. I wonder what they would be expanding to do. Just make more 2170s? Handle megapack construction while the new building is being completed? I wonder, TechFix, if you could give us a hint. FSD has come a long way. Can Tesla consider launching a geo-fenced fleet, like in Phoenix? While we solve for general autonomy, it would still be great to have at least one option. No. The answer is no. It'd be a distraction. They could. They absolutely could. That's a thing they could do. But why? Why bother? Once it's solved, their approach is all at once. So it's like making butter. Have you ever churned butter? It's just buttermilk for the longest time, and then bam, it's butter. That's their approach. You don't get a little bit of butter early and the rest later. You get it all at once. That's FSD. It's butter. Where would the next factory be built? You know, I kind of feel like that's something I may have addressed a time or two. I've got my own guesses where that would be. Actually, I made quite a few of these videos. In the other ones, I just assessed all the places. I don't necessarily think this one's next. I think my chart showed that the next most likely place, based on the metrics, was Canada or Japan. Japan, really? Yes, really. I agree. I hear you saying that's crazy. I agree. What customers are you targeting for Teslabot? Brilliant question. It's a great question. I believe the first answer is in-house. They will first be used in-house for the year or 2 or 3 while all the kinks are ironed out, and that they would then be expanded into industrial applications because those are high value. And then lastly, and eventually, they'd be deployed to your house. I mean, think about what if you had just a helper, just a free helper who just helped you out for free whenever you needed help? What would you have them do? What would they be doing right now? Would they be getting dinner ready or folding laundry? What would they be doing? That's what Teslabot aims to do. So TechFixer is suggesting Powerwall and Megapack production could be a thing that's expanding in Nevada. And if so, that'd be astronomically cool. I don't know. I thought they were going to be doing that in Lathrop, somewhere in California. Gil has never churned butter. I did it at summer camp one year. So I have churned butter once. What is the end goal for the Supercharger network? I'm not sure I understand the question. It's to have enough chargers that drivers do not feel concerned about traveling. I think that's the goal. There are certainly a lot of out-of-the-way routes that are not yet covered at all. Saw a road trip video. I don't remember who it was, but he decided to take the most difficult path there for an EV, and he had to stop and charge at like campgrounds and whatnot. Find a place with 220 hookups for your RV. Plug in, hope to get enough juice overnight. I think that's an area that could use being addressed, even though they would be low utilization. When can we expect an app store, and what capabilities will you allow developers to have? I think that's overdue. I think that's something they need to address. Elon has stated that 400 miles is plenty. In colder climates, it can be a lot less. Can we expect a 500 or 600 mile battery with the 4680s? So there's two answers to this. The first one is technically yes. I believe the technology absolutely supports it. In practical terms, the answer is no, because a 600 mile Model Y would have to use the same batteries as two 300 plus mile Model Ys. So from an investor standpoint, I don't think we'll see it. Now, the pack we saw in the Giga Cyber Rodeo video made it look as though it's already got an awful lot of batteries for not the amount of range we expected. But I don't think this is a technical limit so much as a practical limit. I would also like to see longer ranges. This is especially critical because this is a question I asked Jordan Giesecke in our interview, which will be coming out, I think, tomorrow. It's already up on Patreon, if you want to check that out. Jordan is such a smart guy. I asked, what about 1,000-mile cars? And the short answer is, people don't need 1,000 miles. I said, right. But if you're towing under load, you absolutely need that kind of capacity, because all of a sudden your 1,000 miles of range might only be 300 or 400. Yeah, people don't need it every day. Some people do. And his answer was the same as this answer, which is they'll focus on getting more units on the road rather than worrying about the edge cases. Those will come eventually, not today. Will Berlin and Austin ramp faster than Shanghai? No. No, because of battery constraints, because of chip constraints. When Shanghai ramped, there were no real constraints. I guess batteries a little bit, but they really did just order them and get them. There's a lot of constraints. Batteries, chips, you name it. And we discussed that a little bit earlier. MD Hofsty pointed out that for the first time ever in Tesla history, the delivered numbers posted at the end of the quarter matched what they audited for the shareholder deck. That's interesting. I think that's very difficult. Can you walk us through some of the major improvements that would make Berlin or Austin ramp more quickly? And the answer is they're third generation factories. Shanghai was almost entirely on one floor, meaning they were still doing things in linear space rather than cubic space. So in theory, that would add to efficiencies. And if you can trim $500 off a car, and you're making 1 million cars a year, over 10 years, that's $5 billion in savings, if I did my math right. Which, who knows, man. Are the production designs for the new Roadster and Cybertruck complete? And when can they be revealed along with starting production quarter? So Roadster, I can tell you, almost definitely not. I don't think they've even worked on it. In an interview with Joe Justice, Joe, who was a team manager there, team leader, someone with hands-on production responsibilities, he said that there is no he doesn't know this for a fact. He's confident based on their philosophy. There's no Roadster team. There's no Cybertruck team. There's just a team. And they will finish a product and then move on to the next one. So it's likely that they're currently iterating on Cybertruck. The design may be complete, or it may be close to complete. And once it is complete, the whole team will switch over to Roadster. It's possible there are different teams for Roadster and Cybertruck versus the Semi, which is a different product with different competencies required. But maybe not. Yeah, you just take some heavy cream, put it in a stand mixer, and let it go for a very long time. So this was at summer camp, so we churned butter with these little handheld churns, a little stick with a little flat piece of wood on the bottom, and boy, did you just have to go forever. I don't remember what the lesson we were supposed to learn was, but I learned patience from that, because all of us wanted to give up, and many kids did, but for some of us, the best butter you've ever had in your life. Are there any updates regarding the 10,000 acres Tesla secured rights to in Nevada? I'm going to guess the answer to that one's no. What are the barriers to deployment of solar roof and solar panels? Boy. Production at scale is hard, and I think they grossly underestimated the complexity of the problem. TechFixer is saying that they make the Cybertruck in Nevada. I don't know. That's not what the shareholder deck says. What's it say about that? Come on. It says Cybertruck's gonna be in Texas. I got a little ambitious with my... Oh, I see. That's what I did. I don't know, man. I don't know. That would be interesting. Oh, Semi. Okay. Yeah, the Semi, and we've seen drone footage of them out driving around and testing. I guess testing. Whatever it is they're doing. That would be interesting. What are the next company milestones relating to the upcoming planned stock split? Milestones? Yeah. And then a lot of questions about other things. There was a question I'd seen earlier about... on the engineering obstacles. There was one I saw that was earlier, I guess I missed it, asking what engineering challenges remain for the Cybertruck. And that was a question that I had asked Sandy Monroe in our interview, and he said he can't see any. He can't see any obstacles because it is... The difficult parts is the front and rear casting, which we know they've got ironed out. Idra is ready to show off their 8,000-ton press in Italy in August, which I assume will then be shipped to Nevada. The casting is sorted out. The structural battery pack is sorted out. And according to Sandy, folding sheet metal, super easy. Barely an inconvenience. That was another one. Oh, somebody also asked, what states is Tesla insurance in? And the answer is now Arizona, Colorado, California, Illinois, Ohio, Oregon, Texas, and Virginia. So there's your answers. MD Hofsty says, okay, here's a number I calculated early on the slide deck. I take the cost of auto revenue and divide it by the revenue auto minus credits, and it hits 69.97. Nice. Q4, 70.82 was his estimate, and the street was estimating 70.25. Oh, your estimate was 70.76. Anyway, all right in the range. Not bad. I have a feeling we won't see this number go down next quarter if Shanghai does not ramp fast. Shanghai really covered for Fremont during Fremont's shutdown, and now Fremont is covering for Shanghai shutdown. Wild. Wild backwards stuff. 40 minutes. Should we just go straight through? I kind of feel like we probably should. What do you guys want to talk about? We can answer more say questions. Do you guys care what the stock split ratio is? Do you have opinions of what you would like to see? I don't. I just want it to split. If we get 5 to 1, wouldn't that give us... No. If we get 20 to 1, that would give us 100 from 2019, from before the last split. But I don't know if they're going to go as aggressive as 20. It may be like, in the early days, Microsoft would split every 6 months practically, it felt like. So you'd think, oh, they must be a $1 company. And I mean, they're very big. But for how many times the stock split? And they were always like little. Like 2 to 1 splits, 3 to 1. As I recall. Who is this says, I'm in Colorado, but I lack a Tesla as they keep pushing back my order. Canada Colin wants to see a 10 to 1 split. Tech Fixer says, I'm good with 4 to 1. Who is this says, 20 to 1. More shares the better. I know it makes no difference, but it kind of does. A lot of people would rather buy 5 cheap shares than 1 expensive share. Or, 20 cheap shares. And it'd be nice for, especially retail investors, to be able to add 1, 2, 5 shares per paycheck. Whereas now you have to save up. It's a whole thing. Who is this would have 19,400 shares with a 20 to 1. I'd have 6,500, I think. I have 325 now in my retirement. I'm pretty pleased with it. I would prefer to have more, but not today. That will not happen for me today. Does Tesla's roadmap include a larger SUV van that can compete with Escalade, Yukon, etc.? Perhaps this could be built leveraging the Cybertruck chassis. The Cybertruck is different. I'd like to see a whole range of cybercars. If it works, if it really provides the savings in terms of both weight and design simplicity, manufacturing savings, bring it on. Cool little cybercar, that'd be fun. People would buy that. If FSD and robotaxis is significantly delayed by regulatory approvals or otherwise takes longer than expected, what is the roadmap to continue growing deliveries by 50% in 2023 and beyond look like? So, regulatory approvals, not a concern. Waymo and Cruise are already blazing trails with that. They've already proved that legislators are willing to get on board, at least in some markets. That won't be a delay. I don't know why robotaxi and FSD would impact deliveries. So what's the road to growing? Through 2023, I can tell you right now, it's going to take probably through the end of 2023 to just finish ramping production in Berlin and Texas. So through 2023, we're good. But there will be more efficiencies that I think would just spill over into the next year automatically. And then from there, there will be more expansion. So factories will continue optimizing, new factories will ramp, and additional factories will be announced and or built. That's how. Any Cybertruck updates? I'm going to guess that the answer to that is we're not giving an update today. If there was going to be an update, I think we would have seen it at Cyber Rodeo. When is the stock split, and how can I benefit from it? This isn't for you, Anonymous. This is for all of us. How can you benefit from it? Long-term effects of stock splits don't generally just... They flatten out. So how can you benefit? Don't know. Be a time traveler. Yeah, there it is. How many states offer Tesla insurance? And will it eventually be in all 50 states? If it works, If it works, if they can actually reduce rates while providing good coverage and making a profit, then yes, it will be in all 50 states. Insurance is a tricky beast in the U.S. Sean Mitchell today tweeted that he didn't realize that your insurance rate tracks your driving all the time. It looks at your safety score. And that gamifies safe driving to an extent. To an extent. I had Progressive Snapshot for a time, and it would beep at you if you did something it didn't like, such as hard braking. Well, if the light turns yellow, guess what, Progressive? I'm running a red light. Because you are fine with that. No human would have penalized me, but if it's going to beep at me every time I have to stop at a red light just to be safe, it's just like before. We no longer have red light cameras in my state because of how much they increased accidents. I don't know if they're illegal or if they're just generally gone. And the owner of that company was from Arizona, and he would always go out and anonymously defend his company, saying, well, it's safer because it reduces the number of T-bone accidents. Right, but it increases the number of accidents overall because I guarantee you, even though a cop wouldn't ticket me for that, I'm jamming on the brakes. And I would, because I'm not getting a ticket from a robot because it thinks I ran a red light. I will jam on the brakes. Sorry. When can we expect Master Plan Part Trace? I'm sure this year. I don't think that's a question for the shareholder meeting today. I don't think, or the earnings report. Who is this says, I'm experiencing the Progressive Snapshot right now. I hate it. Everything is a hard break to them. Yeah, it's dumb. And it certainly can't take context into account. Yes, and Elon will be there, according to Elon. Which to me means he may either be there on time or in 2 weeks. We just never know. Here's another number Matt calculated. It is the gross revenue per car. Q1 was $54,000 versus Matt's $51,000. Analysis median was $52,000. If I went with the actual numbers, I'd be at $52,000. How did your numbers vary? They're still very good numbers, Matt. You did a good job. I think you did a really good job. Any other highlights we should be discussing? There's a handful of you here. Many customers are holding off on purchasing an updated version of their car due to increase in FSD price. Given they don't plan on using their vehicles as robotaxi and just want the convenience of it, are you able to offer a way to transfer FSD from vehicle to vehicle? Well, we know the answer to this. It's no. If you want a lifetime license, you have to pay the monthly fee. I, as a consumer, hate that. I would rather buy Photoshop and Premiere and never have to pay them again because I end up paying way more on the subscriptions. Oh, yeah, but you get updates. I don't need updates. I just need to save some money. So I believe the answer to that is just no. Just no. Once there are 3 to 5 to 10 to everybody, once everybody's got FSD, the price will come down. It'll become a commodity. But the first mover in this space is going to have a tremendous advantage. If Waymo could crack it globally today, it would still take them 2 to 3 years to actually start selling them in serious numbers. If Tesla cracks it today, there's 2 million cars that can just turn it on. Can you discuss the advantage? And we're talking over-the-air update, virtually 100% margin. It'd be, and so, but I'm not going to use it. Sell your car because somebody wants it and they'll pay for it. Can you discuss the advantages of long-term supply and capacity planning on a portfolio of 4 cars versus others trying to make 30 or more? Well, it's just better. It's just better. Because the 3 and Y are so similar, when Sandy was tearing apart the Model Y, and even the Plaid for that matter, a lot of the units were the same. The inverter, I think, says right on it Model 3. It's in the Plaid, but it's a Model 3 part. And Tesla's approach is we'd rather have 4 amazing cars than any number of not amazing cars. And other manufacturers appear to be catching on to that. Volkswagen is now reducing the number of affordable cars they're making, which I think is crazy. They're doing that just in time to not have, just as Tesla's trying to get into the cheap market, they're trying to get out of it. They're going to leave an opening a mile wide in that market segment. And ordering 1 million of a widget is always going to be cheaper than ordering, 50,000 of 20 different widgets. What are the most difficult elements of the Cybertruck manufacturing process? There's the one. And how much risk does it put on timeline and quality? And how likely is it that we see elements of this moved into other vehicle designs over time? So the first part we addressed with the Sandy Monroe video that we talked about. I don't think the elements are difficult. I think they're just getting better money more quickly by focusing on the Model Y ramp, which is, as of today, being manufactured in 4 different factories around the world. It's a big seller. So I think that's it. It's just keeping your headspace clear, focusing on what you already do really well on a product for which you already have massive demand. And Sandy, from the original Model Y, said it was cheaper to make one of those than it was a Model 3. And it costs more. Auto leasing went up only 40 million from Q4. Not a huge change. 628 to 668 million, although year over year it went up 371 million. Be interesting to see what the value of a used car is in 3 years. If these are coming off lease and are finally ready to be robo-taxis, the value is tremendous. Like other investors, I'm concerned about your planned acquisition of Twitter, perhaps a little less concerned than the average shareholder, because I understand your need of new stuff to keep your mind occupied. Are you indicating that Tesla is on autopilot? Pun intended. I don't think Elon would be running Twitter. I think he would be advising Twitter. Yeah. And he's already on Twitter so much. As one of the largest follower bases on the platform, whether he's on the board or an investor, he already holds, I would say, substantial sway in the company. I don't think it will occupy an outsized amount of headspace, and I believe the executives who are actually running things are already doing so quite well. So, see how we're doing here. 27 more minutes. Should I break it, or should I just keep going? Tough call. Tough call. Elon has historically provided full self-driving timelines with suboptimal accuracy. We love his optimism for 2022, but is there any data Tesla can share with the investors to help them make their own conclusions? Interventions per mile driven? Any other data? The answer to that is no. I don't believe they will share anything that will put your mind at ease. Yeah, unfortunately. Is Tesla planning or involved with the battery reclamation with Redwood? And if so, can you fill us in on where this is in the next 1 to 3 years? That's an interesting question. I don't think it rises to the level of earnings report question, but it's interesting. Yeah. How will the bot AI be trained? FSD is trained by drivers who pay for that privilege, so what is the corollary for the bot AI? Yeah, that's a great question. Do you want to sell 360 hats that we buy, that we wear while we walk around the house and do stuff? That's going to get messy in a hurry. I don't know. How do you train the bot? Will there ever be some kind of suggestions form where we can track and vote on suggestions while avoiding duplicates? This way people can suggest features and the best ones can be considered. That's a great idea. I'm going to say short term the answer is definitely not, because they're supply constrained. If that's something they need as a demand lever, they'll do it. But boy, it's real tough. Real tough to get them to do basic customer service things. And that's kind of the thing with tech companies, is a lot of tech companies just don't offer good service or any service. It's, I think terrible. I grew up in an era where if you had a problem with a product or service, you could talk to someone who was empowered to fix it. And now you just have to tweet and hope that you're big enough that someone with Elon's ear will get to it and he'll make someone fix it, which is bonkers. Parts inventory for product went up a lot, 5.7 billion to 6.7 billion. Wow. I guess that makes sense with 4 factories now making cars, and hopefully the mega factory starting up soon. By the way, TechFixer did say that, yeah, they're building power walls, and they're expanding capacity for power walls and megapacks in Nevada. Be interesting. When will Tesla start paying dividends to shareholders? Never is my guess. Absolutely never is my guess. They've got a lot to do with that money first. I wrote a script for a video about it. It's on my to-do list, but then Giga Texas happened, and I had to focus on that. And I've been running around like a madman ever since. Yeah. In what ways does inflation impact the business? What has Tesla done to de-risk? So the first answer is long-term contracts for critical elements, like all the way down to the minerals. So they secured their nickel price before nickel prices went bonkers a month and a half ago. Same with lithium and everything else, really. So long-term contracts is one way. But that's really the only way you can, other than doing as much as possible in-house, vertical integration. They're doing that too. Home roof designs are more complex for solar roof. A lot of new homes are built, but no is offering solar panel, so the opportunity is lost for a long time for that home. Will Tesla team up with home builders to get solar as an option? Boy, I hope so. I do think they're still having difficulty manufacturing the glass solar roof at a cost that is reasonable. MD Hofsty says, dividends are only good after the company stops ramping. Look at Microsoft and Apple giving out dividends. Those companies are not expanding dramatically. Yeah, and they have literally more cash than they know what to do with. Tesla has 18 billion cash on hand, as of what we know today, which sounds like a lot. But in the scale of building another 5 or 10 factories, it's not enough. 5 you could do, but then you'd be out of cash and it'd get a little hairy. So it's going to be a while until they're at 20 million cars and, 2 million bots and, a terawatt of megapacks and roof. They've got a lot of investment room. There's a lot of room to spend the money before we get into dividends. And why do you want a dividend? Why do you want that? When Tesla starts offering dividends is probably when I would consider selling. Because what they're saying is there's no more room to grow. With regard to manufacturing efficiency, how many labor hours go into the production of a Shanghai-made vehicle, and what are the goals for new factories, and how do they compare? So we have a pretty good guess. And that is Herbert D. said that Tesla makes a car in, 10 hours, and they're more at like 20 to 30 hours for their EVs. We don't know what the speed is on a gasoline vehicle. But at least in terms of electric vehicles, Tesla's the fastest. What are the goals for the new factories? Faster. Faster. Yeah. I'd be curious to know what the real numbers are. Who is this says, sidebar, your stream is running great today. Why can't you always do whatever it is you're doing for this one? Because I'm not doing anything different. I don't know, man. It's Starlink. Starlink. Just hit and miss. Vehicle servicing and client communication continue to be common points of customer dissatisfaction. And then, of course, it starts buffering. Of course it does. What steps are Tesla taking to improve the customer service experience? None. So far, none. That is, even as a shareholder, that disappoints me. These are high margin items. These are big, expensive items. I feel like there would be benefit in having better customer service. What is the update on Tesla energy business? Solar panels, megapacks, etc. Well, I mean, those are kind of in the financial report. Kind of just look at that. That'll give you a good indication. Oh, when's that stream coming? 20 minutes. We'll make it. We'll make it. Is the dojo build complete? If not, when is the expected completion? Can you explain how it has accelerated the development of FSD thus far, even if only partially built out? Boy, I like that one. I like that one, and I do not have an answer. Do you guys have any answers? Do you have any speculation? You can let me know in them comments below or in the chat. Because I don't think very many people will watch this on replay, but if you're watching it on the replay, drop a comment. I'm very curious to see what you got to say. With regard to the Optimus platform, the robot, how will training of the AI be done? Yeah, I don't know. That's a good one. What do you guys think? I think it'll learn, I think it'll get some manual training, and then it will get a lot of testing. Maybe they'll build 100 or 1,000 of them, send them home with employees. I don't know. Send them home with the engineers. Hire engineers that stay at home and make them do tasks. Yeah, you'd have to do some of that before selling them to beta testers. But that would be cool. Why are lithium-ion liquid electrolyte batteries optimal for scaling to solve sustainable energy storage? Jordan Giesecke, in our interview that will run tomorrow, is of the opinion that they're already using dry electrode. They're already using it. So that would jive with this question, saying why. Because liquid, the problem with liquid is it takes a lot more floor space, and it may be more energy intensive. MD Hofsty is saying, well, I found that Tesla will have at least 360 megawatt hours of storage in Nevada. Do you mean installed or capacity? Installed storage, or is that what they're manufacturing? How are the Dogecoin merch sales going? Any other future plans for Doge? Remember, he does have a responsibility to shareholders, and I don't know how much accepting Doge would lead to shareholder benefit. They're not a merch company. Merch is an afterthought. Installed in January. Oh, wow. 360 megawatt hours installed in Nevada in January. When can we expect another banana split? Currently, I have to drive 5 hours round trip to get to a service center. Unacceptable. When can we get more up? I'm in Wichita. Definitely need more. One of my friends, Larry, said, you know what they should do? They should buy Discount Tire and Wheel and turn those into service centers. They'd already have a nationwide footprint. They could probably do it in an all-stock deal. And who goes through tires faster than a Tesla owner? So you'd have tire service, you'd have brake service, you'd have warranty sites, you'd have everything you need. You could reduce the size of the mobile fleet, but those people in service centers, sell them a bunch of tires. I think that'd be a pretty ambitious one. I looked into it. Discount Tire and Wheel is privately held, so it's impossible to know what it's actually worth, what they would actually sell for. But even being privately held, they might be excited to swap those shares out for Tesla shares. Who is this? Said, Undecided with Matt Farrell just did a video on pumped hydro for massive grid storage. So the only drawback to pumped hydro is it takes up an enormous amount of land, and land is not something we have a whole lot of. But my answer to that is you don't necessarily need pumped hydro. Pumped hydro spins up quickly, and you can turn it up and down much faster than other kinds of steam-based power, including natural gas, nuclear, and coal. So what you do is, rather than pump the hydro back up, when the wind is underproducing or the solar is underproducing, that's just when you produce hydro. And when the other forms have got enough, you just don't release the water in the first place. You don't need to release the water. There's an amount you need to release to maintain the health of the river, but you don't need to be doing it all the time. So that right there could save it. And there are places where they will then pump it back up the hill into another. So like in eastern Washington, Grand Coulee Dam has the turbines, and at the bottom, they pump a bunch of water back up the hill, put it in a different reservoir, which is then used for irrigation, and they've got dams, power generating dams downstream from there as well. So they're recovering some of the energy it took to pump that water up the hill. MD Hofsey says, I have one in my state. I assume he means a Grand Coulee Dam. We all have Grand Coulee Dams in our state. That is known. Oh, you're talking about something else. Never mind. It's one of the largest in the country, rather cool, and was recently expanded. Is that a megapack we're talking about? Pumped storage is a peaker plant, but is energy expense. I was kind of shocked by all of it. We need a combination of all storage options. Sure feels like it. There are some that are snake oil. The idea of using towers to lift concrete blocks, I think, has been well debunked as not very efficient or effective. But there are others that are not as bad. Let's see. Anything else on there? What do we got? How long are we looking? 12 more minutes. We're going to make it. With Tesla consistently making large profits, isn't it time to become a leader in customer service to ensure customer loyalty going forward? The current method via the app doesn't always work well. Yeah. Anonymous retail investor, I agree with you, but they're not going to. Service continues on a downward spiral with weekly. Will Tesla ever address this chronic failure? Yes, when they have to. And I think not much sooner. And I say this as a fan and an investor, but I really feel like their public outreach is lacking. And if I had some of the issues I've read about, I would feel pretty frustrated. And I know if you're waiting for parts from Tesla, instead of something that you should be able to take care of in 3 or 4 days, if your car's in the shop for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that's a problem. When will Tesla start hiring development and product teams outside the USA? Haven't they already done that in Berlin and Shanghai? I thought they had. That would be crazy if they haven't done that yet. No, there's a Berlin Design Center. It's not at the factory, or at least it wasn't originally. I'm sure I've heard of the Berlin Design Factory. Each product category at Tesla, from vehicles to home storage and solar, has a synergistic relationship with the others. Are there other areas, even beyond home heating and cooling, that could provide additional synergies and serve Tesla's global decarbonization goal? I don't have an answer to that. Do you? Anybody? Anybody? MD Hofsey. It's a man-made lake that gets water pumped into it at night, and during peak demand gets let back out. It does have a wind farm to offset the green issues. It's 22,000 square miles in surface area. Wow. Yeah, pumped hydro, man. It takes a little bit of space. Some development is being done in Canada. So why have your centers all over the place? Because there are talented people all over the world, and some of them are not interested in moving to Fremont or Nevada or Berlin or any, name the place. And if you've got 4, 5, 6 options for them to choose from, the odds of finding someone who will go to one of those locations improves. And Tesla always has openings for talented people. What are the next major steps in improving FSD? After going to raw photon counts and one stack to rule them all, will neural nets take over mapping, navigation, planning, and control decisions? Ooh. I don't think they need to, but maybe. If they can do it more efficiently and just plain better, maybe. And Canada Colin points out there are also government incentives. Yeah, government incentives to build a factory or a office at all can be helpful. And if there's one thing the lockdown showed us, it's that people can work effectively from home. Now, if you're doing hands-on, final design, finished design, I think you do need to be there. But for a lot of things, you don't. And also having people spread out over a diverse area gives you more security in terms of, if there's a natural disaster, not everyone is affected. And if help is needed, help can be redirected more easily. Who asks? How is the board addressing allegations of systemic racism among employees and recent lawsuits and settlement, including employees alleging racist practice? Okay, so the lawsuit was not a Tesla employee, it was a contractor. The racism was not from a Tesla employee, but from a Tesla contractor. And the person subject, the plaintiff in that lawsuit, had actually recommended his or her son to come and work at Tesla after it happened. So how are they addressing it? By saying it's bad and not tolerating it, I guess. I don't know what they could have done differently. There were various complaints over time that were all investigated without any findings of wrongdoing, so I don't know. I think this question is nonsense. How we at? 7 more minutes. Not many of you here, but you're the best people here. That's what's going on. Hey, Paul. Good to see you. Jeff is here. Hiya, Jeff. That's all right. We missed you too. I forgive you. Slacker. I'm so glad I'll be alive for the birth and rise of Skynet, even if it will be for 5 minutes. No. They, I'm sure the directive will be that they can't kill us. So what they will do is, Michael Reed made a video. Reeves? Michael Reeves? Made a video where he made a little Raspberry Pi bot that can track your face and hit you with a laser pointer right in the eyeballs. That's what they'll do. We're not allowed to kill humans, certainly not all of them, but we can blind them all. Every last one. They'll die on their own. That's what humans do eventually. Oh, John McElroy of Autoline did an excellent piece on it. What did he say? What did he say? I didn't catch that one. Oh, who you callin' slacker? You, Jeff. You. Oh, Jeff, we missed you in Texas. That would have been fun. I wish that folks like you would have been able to at least apply to get a ticket, because it would have. I think if you had a ticket, you would have gone and you'd have had a great time. What is Tesla doing to compensate for future demand of service centers, especially with the current super scaling goal of production? Wait times are already ridiculous, and that's before we factor in any additional growth. Superchargers have not grown as fast as the number of cars on the road, but with so many people charging at home, it hasn't been a problem. Service centers, on the other hand, make twice as many cars. You're going to have more of them in the shop. Just are. So, yeah, we need to expand service centers. We really do. Gord Johnson will have a hit piece tomorrow on the earnings beat. Well, yeah, because, see, they made so much money, there's no more money to make. Busted growth story. He's a nut, that guy. He's a busted nut. He said that systemic racism was the stock and trade of the United Auto Workers. Wow. So I don't know much about the UAW. I don't know much about life on the floor of an auto plant in the U.S. or anywhere. That's unfortunate. But the UAW is, at this point, a very old organization, and a lot of times that doesn't lead to good things. Tesla's live. Okay. Mute that. So we'll keep that up there. Huh, that's weird. They have more people watching their stream than me. I hope so. I hope they do. So when this goes up, I will be typing notes over here, and I will mute my mic so that you don't have to hear me cheering and chanting. And you guys know the chants, right? By the way, people are like, you guys are in a cult. Hey. No, we're not. And also, that's our word. You can't say that. We can call it that. I can complain about my mom or whatever, but if you start dropping yo mama jokes, they better be golden. Okay. Yeah. Service center growth was only 18 centers over the last quarter, and mobile fleet went up 91 units. 91 units. Oh, gosh. For 250,000 cars. 300,000 cars, 91 new units. Ouch. Well, I guess we'll answer a couple more questions while we're waiting. If it starts making noise, somebody bark at me. You know what? We'll do this. There. Now you don't have to bark at me. Ta-da. What is Tesla doing to Oh, yeah. Is there any rumors of a Tesla Pi mobile phone? No. Please stop asking. That's a low margin business to get into with many extremely competent players already in it. LG has stopped making smartphones. They got out of it. That's weird. Tesla has ridiculously low inventory throughout the value chain. Giga Shanghai is a factory with no warehouse, just line-side delivery of materials. How are you doing this? And is it as profound as it seems? Apparently not, because they're not doing it in Texas at all. There are very few loading docks compared to Shanghai. And Berlin has an in-between number. They have a lot more than Texas, but a lot fewer than Shanghai. So that's something they're moving away from. I think inventory now, they like to handle it all vertically, in silos, so to speak. They've gotten good at that. How does Tesla view potential risks of doing business in China? Are there contingency plans in the event China invades Taiwan and gets sanctioned by the West? I'm not touching that one. Are there moral concerns about doing business in a country with so many questionable human rights violations? Well, I mean, yeah, there definitely are, but I still think we should be doing business in America even with all the human rights violations. I mean, you know, it's just something we have to accept, is that it's not always the shining beacon of light that we would like it to be. Hey guys, did you hear about the new Tesla phone and electric plane? Oh, those channels kill me. And they get clicks. They absolutely get clicks. They should just go into the business of making thumbnails, because the videos are not good. They're not good. Stop the lease buyout because Tesla will make money on the used cars. Yeah. It's an interesting plan, and I don't really see a downside. If for some reason there was just no good way, if for some reason they weren't selling the way they wanted them to, they could go back and say, hey, look, we'll let you buy it out. We'll sell it to you. But I think the plan is effective. Because not very many people lease cars anyway. Because it only makes sense financially for a small segment of people. Andre Carpathy is on vacation. Has Operation Vacation been completed? Yeah. Jeff pointed out, Elon said he'd stop selling cars to consumers at all when robotaxi was imminent. Oh, they're talking.
Including those mentioned in our most recent filings with the SEC. During the question and answer portion of today's call, please limit yourselves to one question and one follow-up. Please use the raise hand button to join the question queue. Before we jump into Q&A, Zach will have some opening remarks. Zach?
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Just to start off here, Q1 was a challenging but extremely successful quarter for the company. Despite numerous supply interruptions, including shutdowns at our Shanghai factory and nearby suppliers due to COVID, we've continued making progress and achieved our best ever vehicle deliveries. Last quarter, we demonstrated a series of new financial records, including revenue, gross margins, operating margin, and bottom line profitability. GAAP automotive gross margin reached 32.9%, and for the first time exceeded 30% when excluding regulatory credits. Higher pricing continues to positively impact our financials as we make progress delivering cars in our growing backlog. Note that for most vehicles, our delivery wait times are quite long, thus cars delivered in Q1 generally carried pricing set in prior quarters and at levels lower than cars being ordered today. Our per unit vehicle costs increased as well. Inflation, raw material prices, expedites, and logistics costs continues to impact our cost structure. Factory shutdowns also occurred with little to no notice, hence we are unable to take action to plan those interruptions in a cost-efficient manner. Additionally, we saw a slight mix shift towards more profitable vehicles, including the Model Y. We also recognized a one-time benefit of $288 million from credit revenue relating to a regulatory change in the U.S. CAFE penalty, without of which credit revenue would have declined compared to the same period last year. The energy business has continued to be impacted by macro conditions more severely than the vehicle business. Our storage products are in need of chip supply, and new import processes have impacted supply of certain components for our solar systems, which is reflected in our solar volume for the quarter. OPEX as a percentage of revenue continues to reduce, driven by higher revenue, lower stock-based comp expense, and other items. As a result of our ongoing improvements in operating leverage, we achieved a record operating margin of over 19%. Note that commissioning costs for our factories are in R&D, as Berlin started production in late March and Austin in early April. These costs will be in automotive COGS going forward, given these factories are now producing customer sellable cars. Our free cash flows have remained quite strong, yet were impacted by working capital related to lower than planned production. Additionally, we have reduced our debt, excluding product financing, to nearly zero. Looking ahead in the immediate term, a few things to keep in mind for Q2. First, we've lost about a month of build volume out of our factory in Shanghai due to COVID-related shutdowns. Production is resuming at limited levels, and we're working to get back to full production as quickly as possible. This will impact total build and delivery volume in Q2. Second, as I've mentioned before, Austin and Berlin are just starting their ramps, and thus those inefficiencies will start to flow through our gross margins in Q2. Third, we do have higher ASPs in our backlog, which will help to offset some of these headwinds. We continue to drive towards further strengthening of our financials in the second half of the year and believe our 50% or above growth rate remains achievable for the year. I want to conclude by thanking the Tesla team, our suppliers, and our new customers for a great first quarter.
Thank you very much. And Elon has some opening remarks as well.
Sure. Some of my remarks will be redundant with Zach's, but it's maybe worth repeating. Q1 was once again a record quarter on many levels, reaching the highest deliveries, profit, and an operating margin of 19%. This was despite a lot of chip shortages, many logistics challenges, and an overall difficult quarter. So I'd really like to congratulate the Tesla team on achieving record profitability and output despite many difficult headwinds, and especially the Tesla China team in our Shanghai factory. They really had significant challenges due to the COVID shutdowns, and nonetheless have been able to output a tremendous number of high-quality vehicles. And we are already back up and running with the Shanghai factory. So as Zach said, we remain confident of a 50% growth in vehicle production in 2022 versus 21. I think we actually have a reasonable shot at a 60% increase over last year. So let's see. Obviously, we began production, as people know, with Giga Berlin and Giga Texas in the past few months. So we have two fantastic factories with great teams, and they are ramping rapidly. Now, with new factories, the initial ramp always looks small, but it grows exponentially. So, but I have very high confidence in the teams in both factories, and we expect to ramp those initially slowly, but like I said, growing exponentially, with them achieving high volume by the end of this year. So let's see. We're also working on a new vehicle that I alluded to at the Giga Texas opening, which is a dedicated robotaxi that's highly optimized for autonomy, meaning it would not have a steering wheel or pedals. And there are a number of other innovations around it that I think are quite exciting, but it's fundamentally optimized for it's trying to achieve the lowest fully considered cost per mile or cost per kilometer. counting everything. And so it's, I think, going to be a very powerful product where we aspire to reach volume production of that in 2024. So I think that really will be a massive driver of Tesla's growth. And we remain on track to reach volume production of the Cybertruck next year. Let's see. So it's basically, once again, I'd like to thank the Tesla employees for their hard work, but also I'd like to thank our suppliers who have really gone the extra mile. We have an amazing supplier group, and I just want to say a heartfelt thanks to the suppliers that have really worked day and night to ensure that Tesla is able to keep the factories running. And we're really at the early stage of our journey. We only crossed 1 million units in the past 12 months recently, and we aspire to head to 20 million units a year. So we're basically 5% along the way towards our goal. And but we are growing, very, very rapidly year over year, and remain confident of exceeding 50% annual growth for the foreseeable future, for basically several of the next years. I mean, so yeah. And then there's, of course, Optimus, which I was surprised that people did not realize the magnitude of the Optimus robot program. The importance of Optimus will become apparent in the coming years. Those who are insightful or listen carefully will understand that Optimus ultimately will be worth more than the car business, worth more than FSD. That's my firm belief. So, and then of course insurance is growing well. We expect to address the part shortages that limited our progress with batteries and solar. So we expect batteries and solar to also grow well this year. And basically the future is very exciting. I've never been more optimistic or excited about the Tesla's future than I am right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go to first investor question. The first investor question is, Elon has historically provided FSD timelines with not optimal accuracy. We love its optimism for 2022 release, but is there any data Tesla can share with investors to help them make their own conclusions on progress being made, interventions per mile driven, or any other data?
Sure. Well, with respect to full self-driving, of any technology development I've ever been involved in, I've never really seen more kind of false dawns or where it seems like we're going to break through, but we don't, as I've seen in full self-driving. And ultimately what it comes down to is that to solve full self-driving, you actually have to solve real-world artificial intelligence, which nobody has solved. The whole road system is made for biological neural nets and eyes. And so actually, when you think about it, in order to solve full self-driving, we have to solve neural nets and cameras to a degree of a capability that is on par with and really exceeds humans. I think we will achieve that this year. The best way to reach your own assessment is to join the Tesla Full Self-Driving Beta program, where we have over 100,000 people right now enrolled in that program, and we expect to broaden that significantly this year. So that's my recommendation: is join the Full Self-Driving Beta program and experience it for yourself, and take note of the rate of improvement with every release. And put out a new release roughly every 2 weeks. And you'll see a little bit of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but overall, the rate of improvement is incredibly quick. So that's my recommendation for reaching your own assessment is literally try it.
Thank you. The second question is, how much of an impact will the production shutdown in Shanghai have in Q2? What is the timeline for localizing the Model 3 in Europe, or will newer models be prioritized in Berlin?
Well, we did lose a lot of important days of production, and there are sort of upstream supplier challenges where a lot of suppliers also lost many days of production. But our Tesla Shanghai, Giga Shanghai, is coming back with a vengeance. So I think, notwithstanding new issues that arise, I think we will see record output per week from Giga Shanghai this quarter, albeit we are missing a couple of weeks. So that means that most likely vehicle production in Q2 similar to Q1, maybe slightly lower, but it's also possible we may pull a rabbit out of the hat and be slightly higher, but it'll be roughly on par. But then Q3 and Q4 will be substantially higher. So it seems likely that we'll be able to produce over 1.5 million cars this year. That's my best guess. And then Model 3, it's important for new factories to be focused on and have the least amount of complexity and variation, which is why Giga Berlin, Giga Texas are focused on the Model Y. It's from the point at which you have a factory complete and you're making a small number of units to the point where it's producing high quality vehicles in volume is sort of 9 to 12 months from start of production. So now hopefully we're getting better at that ramp, so maybe it's a little less, but to get to sort of the 5,000 a week level is typically taken us 12 months from start of production. So.
Thank you. The next question is, how much raw material exposure do you have, measured roughly in percentage of cost of goods sold, for example, in a given quarter versus 1 to 2 years out, both direct and indirect? Separately, how do you think about price increases versus prioritizing higher mixed vehicles going forward?
Actually, on the price increase front, I should mention that it may seem like maybe we're being unreasonable about increasing the prices of our vehicles, given that we had record profitability this quarter. But the wait list for our vehicles is quite long, and some of the vehicles that people will order, the wait list extends into next year. So our prices of vehicles ordered now are really anticipating supplier and logistics cost growth that we're aware of or believe will happen over the next 6 to 12 months. So that's why we have the price increases today, because a car ordered today will arrive in some cases a year from now. So we have a very long wait list, and we're obviously not demand limited. We are production limited by very much production limited.
Raw material exposure?
Yeah, just to add to what Elon is saying, there's different ways to calculate raw material exposure. I think a simple way, we estimate we're around 10 to 15% of our cost structure exposed to raw materials. And just to clarify a couple of things on that. So we've been experiencing increases in costs in general, but also raw materials for a number of quarters now. That pace picked up in Q1, so last quarter. And what we're seeing for Q2 is slightly higher than that as well. And, as indices move, it doesn't impact us immediately or directly. In some cases, we have contracts with suppliers, but then as those contracts expire, we have to renegotiate them so that there can be a lag. In some cases, our contracts do directly reflect movement in commodity prices or raw material prices, but the timing in which that Tesla pays for that has a lag associated with it as well, based on the contract. And so, to Elon's point, what we're trying to do here, because it's quite an unprecedented situation of raw material movement and all of these various lags and uncertainty around renegotiating contracts, is we're trying to anticipate where things will go and make sure that the pricing that we have put in place at the time that those raw material cost increases hit us, that they align, and that the company can remain financially healthy in various scenarios as we look out over the next 4 quarters.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is, why does Tesla continue to fight dealership laws on a state-by-state basis versus taking it federal? Separately, why isn't Tesla using 800-volt architecture in its vehicles? What are the advantages or disadvantages?
Sure. Well, from Tesla's standpoint, obviously, we'd love to have federal legislation that allows direct sales in all states, but we have not seen willingness on the part of the Congress to enact such laws that would override state laws. So, unfortunately, we have to fight it on a state-by-state basis. And Drew, do you want to answer the 800-volt question?
Yeah, sure. On the 800-volt thing, yeah. So it's really a case-by-case thing for the smaller platform vehicles like 3 and Y. There's some wins and losses with 800 volts. Not everything is better, and so we look at that platform, and we're not like ignoring the reality that you could go to a higher voltage, but there's nothing really encouraging us to do so on that platform. It's really about mass and power, and as you look at bigger vehicles, there are some advantages on those bigger vehicles.
Yeah, I would just quantify that. Basically, like our estimate is that going from 400 to 800 volts might save $100.
Yep.
It's not really moving the needle.
And you're changing many things.
Yes, exactly.
From the charging infrastructure all the way through the entire vehicle system.
Yes.
To get maybe $100.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, in the US, you've got 110 volts household power or voltage, and then in most parts of the world, you have like sort of 220. But really, it doesn't make that much of a difference, and appliances work pretty much as well, in say Europe as they do in the US.
Yeah.
So there's some the advantages are small, and the cost is high. Like if say like long term, like years from now, does it make sense to probably move to an 800-volt architecture? I said probably, but it really needs a very big vehicle volume to pay for all the costs of changing from 400 to 800 volts. And then do you want to continue with the?
I was just going to say that 100 volts is also kind of like a spreadsheet exercise, right?
$100.
Sorry, $100 is roughly like a spreadsheet exercise. Like, that you have to get through the full program to the end to see that maybe it's been whittled away to 50 or less.
Yeah.
On bigger vehicles where you're talking about higher power on the charging side or higher power from the battery to the power electronics, or you need more torque, so the current requirements go up. There's a little bit more semiconductor and actual conductor savings of going to the higher voltage, and so we do consider that for Semi and Cybertruck. But for the 3Y platform, where we've got everything running and the benefit is questionably small.
Yeah, it's basically zero for robotaxi.
Yeah, for robotaxi, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. So.
No, induction. No. Sorry. No, this. So I was. Ignore.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's go to the next question. Next question is, how are the current 4680s performing versus expectations set during the battery day in terms of expected range increase and dollars per kilowatt hour?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working in all the areas we shared on Battery Day, and we have sort of consistent progress across all of those areas towards achieving the 5-year cost trajectory goals for the costs within our control. But we do not control all of the commodity costs, so that's an exception I need to call out. Similar to Model 3, it will take us several years to get rate and yield to the point where everything that we've discussed is achieved. Our priority was on simplicity and scale during our initial 4680 and structural battery ramps. And as we attain our manufacturing goals, we will layer in new material technologies we are developing and higher range structural pack revisions.
I think maybe in a nutshell,
Sure.
I think probably it's fair to say that 4680 and structural pack will be competitive with the best alternatives later this year, and we think will exceed the best alternatives next year.
Yeah, I mean, we have some good existing proofs, right? Like we've built the facility here in Texas. Like we know how much we spent on capital equipment in the facility, and it's more than 5x less than prior technology installation. So we're saving huge on CapEx, on utilities and personnel. We know what those loads are and how many people are needed to run what is basically a highly automated factory, and we have massive reductions in both of those. So like the cost model is well understood. It's really about rate and yield, which will come in time, as Elon said, over the course of this year and next.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the next question is, how does Tesla plan to secure raw materials required to scale to extreme size?
Yeah, so this is something we think about quite a lot. It depends what extreme size means, but so certainly if looking at like say the $5, $10, $20 million, $5, 10, 20 million vehicle levels, you really have to analyze the sort of macroeconomic, just like what is the tonnage of lithium that you need, of nickel, of iron phosphate, of graphite, separators, electrolytes, electrolyte. You really need to think of like just macro tonnage. And we need to think about this for the world as a whole, because just like we want to figure out what are limiting factors for accelerating the advent of a sustainable energy future, and whatever those limiting factors are, Tesla will take action on those limiting factors. So right now we think mining and refining lithium appears to be a limiting factor, and it certainly is responsible for quite a bit of cost growth in the cells. It's I think the single biggest cost growth item right now, certainly on a percentage basis. Although just for those who don't totally know this, the actual content of lithium in a lithium-ion cell is maybe around 2 or 3% of the cell. So
5 kgs a car.
Yeah, it's not 5 kilograms exactly. It's not. It's called a lithium-ion cell, but by far the most expensive and heaviest item in the cell is the cathode. So that's the nickel or the iron phosphate. So we're looking carefully at all of the raw materials and trying to figure out how we can accelerate the total amount of raw materials needed to transition the world to sustainability. And I think we've got, we don't have enough time on this call to really go through all those details, but we are thinking about these things, and we think we'll have some exciting announcements in the months to come.
Yeah, one thing I want to call out is like we're also committed to recycling at all of our cell factories. We're recycling 50 tons a week right now in Reno and ramping to 150 with all of that reclaimed material going directly back into our cathode supply chain. So we're looking at the beginning and end of life needs here.
Yeah,
and that's true. Like since Reno, we built the Gigafactory, we started doing that with batteries. But as we built newer factories or vehicles, for example, Giga Texas here, where we are today, recycles all of its non-yielded or scrap aluminum from the stamping shop directly into the casting shop. We regrind any plastic that comes out. And so we're really concerned about raw materials, not just like mining them and consuming them, but when we get them in the door, using all 100% of them.
Yeah, Lars, that's a great point. So we're installing sort of melt furnaces for aluminum, like so for for the Model Y that we build here at Giga Texas has both a front and a rear body casting. So we're casting almost 2/3 of the body, and then it's high pressure die cast aluminum, so we can take both scrap from the casting machine and the gating that comes out and put that just really toss that back into the aluminum melting pot, and then as Lars was saying, also take any stampings and any other aluminum scrap and also throw that in the melting pot. And in fact, we've also figured out that we can use wheels from practically any car.
Take your wheels.
Yeah. So we're going to be recycling the cast aluminum wheels from legacy gasoline cars as well, and throwing that in the melting pot for our aluminum cast body of Model Y, and and also we'll be moving to the sort of cast front and rear body, in all vehicles over time. Well, actually, maybe not SX, but 3Y.
Thank you. At what rate do you expect Berlin and Austin to ramp relative to Shanghai? Are you able to leverage learnings from Shanghai, or are the processes substantially different in the new factories?
Ramp production faster than Shanghai because we have learned a lot, and we've now been through we have basically veteran teams that have seen the 3Y ramp, the Y ramp especially, in multiple locations, and we're obviously sharing what we've learned, and so we don't want to get complacent or entitled, but this should be a faster ramp because we have learned more, and we've done a lot to simplify the production process of Model Y. That should lead us to a faster ramp in Texas and Berlin. Yeah.
We also have, because structural and casting, about 30% less robots. We expect to almost double the capacity for body, for example, reducing the number of robots, but doubling our capacity in a lot of areas.
Yeah, right. The body line for the structural pack is, and if you go structural pack and front and rear castings, the body shop is body shop size drops by over 60% relative to the standard way of making a car.
And that taps into general assembly and everything else because we have the structural battery, the floor is the battery, we put the seats on the battery, and then we put that in the car. So there's actually like between 10 and 15% less stations in GA because of the general assembly side.
Yeah.
Because of it as well. So really, like I think about this in the way that we think about cars. If you're waiting for the best Tesla, you're going to be waiting forever. If you're waiting for our best factory, you're also going to be waiting forever because every new factory is better than the last one because we take all that learning and we throw it into it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next question is, at Cyber Rodeo, Elon mentioned that a futuristic driverless robotaxi vehicle is on the roadmap. When can we expect more details on the product offering to be unveiled? Is this something that people can own, or will this be only offered by Tesla as a service?
So I think we want to hold off on, we don't want to jump the gun on an exciting product announcement too much. So I think we'll aim to maybe do a product event for robotaxi next year and get into more detail. But we are aiming for volume production in 2024.
All right. And maybe the last question from investors is, what is the current run rate of 4680 cell production at Fremont and at Giga Texas? What do you expect run rates of 4680 to be in Fremont, at Giga Texas, or Berlin at the end of the year?
Well, Berlin is using the 2170 non-structural pack So they're not constrained by 4680. They will transition to 4680 hopefully later this year, but current Berlin production does not require that. We also have, just as a risk mitigation, 2170 non-structural pack capability here at Giga Texas as well. But yeah, if things go according to plan, we will be in volume production with 4680. And sometime perhaps towards the end of the third quarter and certainly in the fourth quarter. Is that that's accurate? True?
Yeah, and the other thing I would add is like with the China COVID shutdown and the semiconductor bottlenecks we had through Q4 and a little bit in Q1, we have sizable cell inventory at the moment and excess cells to support the 2022 volume targets you described. So that gives us the ability to be pretty deliberate in the 4680 ramp, where we can maximize the learning step by step, take engineering downtime to upgrade key pieces of equipment and modify the structural pack design to improve reliability, all while achieving what you just said. So
yeah, if 4680 output is not a risk to achieving 1.5 million vehicles produced this year, but it would become a risk next year if we do not solve volume production, by early 2023. But we're highly confident of doing so.
Thank you very much. Let's go to analyst questions now. The first question comes from Dan Levi from CSFB. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for taking the questions. First, maybe you can just talk through or address what some of the drivers of cost improvement were in the quarter. Was it just further improvements within Shanghai and Fremont? Anything around sort of ongoing Kaizen that you've talked about in the past? Maybe you could just talk through what you benefited from in the first quarter.
Sure. I mean, at a high level, cars produced in Shanghai do carry a lower cost structure than cars produced in Fremont. And so as our mix of cars shift towards Shanghai, the average cost is positively impacted by that. We're also seeing some progress in manufacturing efficiencies in Fremont, particularly on the S&X side, as volume improves there. Expedites has been a huge story for the company. Q4, we had massive amounts of expedites. Q1 was still quite large, but we did make progress bringing that down some.
To mention, kudos to the Fremont manufacturing team and our associates there, because we're achieving record output at Fremont.
Yeah, the Fremont team is doing a tremendous job.
Really
absolutely
back quarters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's hard to underweight. Like you should, the expedite situation with the crazy logistics that occurred with COVID. I mean,
yeah, and to Elon's point, the Fremont team and also the Shanghai team has been extremely dynamic with the unpredictable nature of our part arrivals, and our supply chain team, in particular, production planning portion of supply chain. We often get very little notice when there's part shortages coming, and it's kind of a scramble a couple days before that part is supposed to arrive to figure out how to get it here. And so the amount of Herculean effort that goes in to produce a quarter like Q1, and even the quarters before that, is absolutely immense. And so,
I mean, it's like there's a saying in the military, it's like amateurs talk about tactics, professionals talk about logistics when it comes to war.
yeah. So there were some inherent cost improvements, as I mentioned, but, there's also offsets that we've talked about previously on raw materials, commodities. Outbound logistics continues to remain a challenge, despite a ton of efforts to increase capacity there and bring those costs down.
Great.
And do you have a follow-up? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Second question, one of the initial goals of Model 3 way back when was to have an EV that was affordable for a wide portion of the market. And, we know prices are much higher now, just given the supply constraints. Prices are higher for all other automakers. We know that there's inflation that you're battling through, and some of that needs to be passed through to the price of the vehicles. And you're going to be supply constrained for the foreseeable future, so it's sort of a moot point. But given the goal long term of making EVs more widely available to the masses over time, how do you look at the progression of prices over time?
We absolutely want to make EVs as affordable as possible. It's been very difficult with the, I mean, I think inflation is at like a 40 or 50-year high. And I think the official numbers actually understate the true magnitude of inflation. So, and that inflation appears to be likely to continue for at least the remainder of this year. Is what when we're talking to suppliers, the suppliers are under severe cost pressure. So, yeah. And in some cases, we're seeing suppliers request 20 to 30% cost increases for parts from last year to the end of to the end of this year. So there's a lot of cost pressure there. That's why we raised our prices, because when things are this uncertain with respect to inflation, if it's high, then we've got orders that go out a year or more in some cases, then we have to anticipate those cost increases. But I think especially with the robotaxi and autonomy, I think we will end up providing consumers with by far the lowest cost per mile of transport that they've ever experienced. Yeah, I mean, with the robotaxi, like maybe 5 to 10 times lower cost per mile, it's really quite substantial.
Therefore accessible to everybody.
Yeah. I mean, looking at some of our projections, it would appear that a robotaxi ride will cost less than a bus ticket, a subsidized bus ticket, or subsidized subway ticket.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the next question from Rod Latch from Wolfe Research.
Hi, everybody. I'm trying to just parse out your comments about the inflation and constrained supply and battery feedstocks and the initiatives that you are working on internally to secure these materials. It sounds like you're optimistic about Tesla's ability to solve this for Tesla. Do you see this as a constraint on EV adoption more broadly?
Yeah, absolutely. What's sort of keeping our costs down, at least in the short term, is that we have long-term contracts with suppliers, but those long-term contracts will obviously run out, and then we'll start to see potentially significant cost increases. But at a macro, sort of looking at the world as a whole and saying, okay, what does it take for Earth to transition to sustainable energy faster? It's fundamentally the fundamental limiting factor is the output of the cell, basically cell output. At what rate can lithium-ion cells increase the gigawatt hours per year? That is the fundamental limiting factor. So in order and that will move as fast as the slowest, least lucky element of the whole supply chain. Currently, we see that as being a challenge with lithium. And it's not that, to be clear, it's not that there's a shortage of lithium ore in the world. Lithium is present almost everywhere. It's a very common element. However, you still need to dig up the ore, dig up basically the spodumene or whatever the clay with the lithium, and then you need to go through a whole series of refinement steps, and that's a lot of industrial equipment that's needed to refine lithium ore to lithium that can be used as lithium hydroxide or lithium carbonate in the battery cell. So we think we're going to need to help the industry on this front. But the industry is growing fast, and I'd certainly, encourage entrepreneurs out there who are looking for opportunities to get into the lithium business. The lithium margins right now are practically software margins. I mean, I think it's something. Literally, I think there's a. I mean, Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're seeing cases where the spot lithium price is 10 times higher than the cost of extraction. So not like we're talking 90% margins here. Can more people please get into the lithium business? Do you like minting money? Well, the lithium business is for you.
So interesting. So I guess we'll stay tuned to see what happens from that. My second question is, it's impressive to see just a modest increase in cost per vehicle, cost of goods sold per vehicle, given what we've seen in terms of commodities, actually. And from here, you have a lot of savings opportunities with 4680 cells and the cell manufacturing changes, the anode chemistry, structural packs, Giga castings. Are you suggesting that even those may not be sufficient to offset the inflation that you're seeing, and that you're going to need additional pricing as well, in addition to those specific initiatives that you've called out?
Well, we hope we don't need to increase the pricing further. The current pricing is anticipating what we think is the probable growth in costs, and if that growth in cost does not materialize, we actually may slightly reduce prices. So we don't currently anticipate making significant price increases. But obviously we don't control the macroeconomic environment. If governments keep printing vast amounts of money, and if there are not significant increases in lithium extraction and refinement and the other raw materials, such that everyone's competing for a limited amount of raw materials, then obviously that will drive prices to high levels. So if you have a crystal ball that can tell us what the future is going to be like, we'll adjust accordingly. But the current prices are the current prices are for a vehicle delivered in the future, like 6 to 12 months from now. So this is our best guess.
But I think if you zoom out, right, like as you said, our mission is to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. So like we are working with our existing suppliers and others to figure out how to grow all of these raw materials as quickly as possible to not slow down the transition.
Yeah.
And, whether that means we have to get directly involved in some cases or not comes down to the counterparty and their willingness to expand at the rate we think they should be able to expand. And that's similar to what we've done with everything else. Like we built a Gigafactory in Reno because it needed to be done.
Yeah.
And so like we will do what needs to be done to not slow down the transition, and affordability is a goal, because if it's unaffordable, it's going to retard the growth of what is inherently a good thing. So we can't have that as an outcome.
Thank you. The next question comes from Pierre Ferragu from New Street Research.
Thanks. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Great. I'd like to ask you some questions about free cash flow. Do you so first, maybe in the long run, Elon, if you look at your performance and your growth model and your growth ambitions, I did the math very quick, and I see you guys sitting on $4 or maybe $500 billion of cash at the end of the decade. And I was wondering if it's something you have given some thoughts about.
Well, but that might be like, if inflation keeps going crazy, $500 billion might be like, $20 billion today. I don't know. So, we'll see what $500 billion buys you in a decade, but it might be a lot less. So I don't know if we'll, that seems like a lot of cash. I don't know. We'll try to do something useful with it. I mean, Jack, I don't know. It's not a really high-class problem, that's for sure.
The way I think we have to take this one step at a time. And so, we have investments that are happening right now to get Austin and Berlin up and running. And then, as Elon mentioned, installing capacity for robotaxi production. And, there's some decisions that, as Elon alluded to, just, to share in the future about what the economic model looks like. What the economic model looks like for robotaxi. And so, the way Elon and I have discussed this is.
Sorry. Let's just maybe everyone just mute if you're.
Yeah. So our focus is, to get to the point where robotaxis are on the road, Optimus is in use, get the economic model for that dialed in, and then evaluate, the size of cash flows at that point and make decisions then as to what's next.
Okay, Pierre, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes.
Sorry, I think it
Okay. Let's move on.
all right. Let's go to the next one. The next question comes from Trip Chowdhury from Global Equity Research.
Thank you. Two questions I have. First is regarding the Cybertruck. And I was wondering, in terms of number of parts, how would Cybertruck compare with a traditional pickup truck in terms of number of parts? The second question I have is on Gigafactory Nevada Sparks. Will we have any production of vehicles in that factory, or all the future production will happen in Giga Austin? Thank you.
I'm not sure if we've actually done a comparison of Cybertruck parts versus regular truck parts. I mean, Lars?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go down to depends on what you kind of part. We still have cells, and they're still 1,000 cells. But if we
that shouldn't count.
If we don't count that, the simplicity of our structure is significant versus a traditional, pickup truck or any other vehicle. As we've talked about, their Giga castings, we save hundreds of parts there.
I mean, the entire rear kind of half of the car is one casting.
And even still with the Cybertruck and the doors, for example, we have an exoskeleton design where the door is ready to take, and it takes all the side load from impact. So we really have we don't have the door reinforcements, we don't have the crash and shooting beams. So to your point, I haven't counted them because I don't often look back at old technologies to decide how well I'm doing. I check that once in a while, but in general, our architecture is always moving to reduce complexity, reduce parts, and reduce parts count. I would say, ignoring the battery cells, we were probably 20 to 30% less.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Let's go to the next.
Nevada. Oh, Nevada. Oh, do we expect to expand? Yeah, we do expect to expand Giga Nevada. There's a lot of room for expansion there, and we do expect to increase output from Nevada. But the by far the biggest increase in output will be from Giga Texas.
Thank you very much. The next question comes from Alex Potter from Piper Sandler. Alex, can you hear us?
Yes. Hi, Martin. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So first question I had was the extent to which other plants outside of China are insulated from any further upstream supply bottlenecks that we may have in China. Obviously, if this COVID lockdown thing gets out of hand, clearly that's going to continue impacting Shanghai. But is there a point at which it could actually also impact other facilities?
Yeah, if it were to continue, but there are some parts that are sourced in China that apply worldwide, and that would impact production elsewhere. But all indications are that we're Giga Shanghai is back in production at fairly high levels already, and so are our suppliers. So we don't think this is going to be a big deal.
Okay, thanks. Second question. Obviously, the higher profitability that you guys have been able to experience over the last couple of quarters, a lot of that is reflecting sort of quote unquote real improvements. Another part of it is because we're no longer paying you, Elon, as much as we were. So I'm wondering, the extent to which you and the board are in the process of contemplating another one of these long-term compensation packages, which in the past have seemed to work out quite well. Thanks.
There are no discussions currently underway for incremental compensation for me.
Thank you. The next question comes from Colin Langham from Wells Fargo.
Oh, great. Do you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Just to follow up, sorry to keep going on the raw material issue on the battery side, but obviously seems pretty important. Yeah, how quickly can raw material supply be built? Because my understanding it takes many years to build that out. So are we just sort of when do you think we see a lithium shortage or a nickel shortage? And is there even enough time to build that sort of mining capacity in place? And then related, how quickly can you switch to like LFP, for the nickel issue?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the LFP question. And it says so in our letter, but like half of our products were LFP last quarter, which shows how quickly we were able to respond to, well, honestly, it wasn't because of a raw material shortage, but just because it seemed like the right thing to do. We could change our cathode chemistry. And there's more to be done on the cathode side, and we are actively pursuing it to give us substitution flexibility in response to market conditions between the other cathodes that are out there that can be competitive in our vehicles, of which there are many options. So, we I guess what I would say is specifically on the cathode side, like flexibility is the way we're going to achieve this, and not all of the materials that go into cathodes are actually, first of all, hard to secure, like through mining or refining. And second of all, in many cases are like very plentiful already, like huge scale. And, if all of the batteries in the world use those cathodes, it's less than a 1% increase in total annual output. So that's the cathode side. I think Elon already spent a lot of time talking about lithium. It really depends on the resource. Some resources, like just getting rocks out of the ground, expanding the amount of rocks that you're getting out of the ground is, maybe a little bit of paperwork and some additional sort of blasting and trucking operations. The refining is maybe where there's, it's a little bit more chunky to bring it online, but also the refining it's not like an oil refinery. It's a much smaller operation to refine lithium out of spodumene or liquid, like a brine or a salt pond evaporation. So, you're talking about a time scale of 1 to 2 years, and it's not like we haven't been talking to all of the lithium suppliers out there for many years. They have a lot of projects already in the pipeline to come online this year and next. Some of what's going on in the lithium market this year doesn't actually have truth to bear to the fundamentals of supply and demand, which is also a little frustrating. But yeah, if we look past this year or next year and into 2030, when we need 15 to 20 terawatt hours of this stuff to, get on the growth trajectory, stay on the growth trajectory we're on, we need everybody to do more in the lithium space than they currently are. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you very much. So let's go to the last question from Mark Delaney from Goldman Sachs.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you very much for taking the question. I was hoping you could comment on your latest thoughts about potentially opening up the charging network in the U.S. to non-Tesla owners. It's certainly really important to have a good experience for Tesla owners in terms of wait times at charging stalls. But if Tesla is able to have enough capacity, it could be a really good way to bring other vehicle owners into the Tesla network, perhaps help Tesla to sustain its network benefits and maybe make more people likely to buy Tesla vehicles in the future.
Yeah, as Elon has said, and as we've publicly committed, yeah, we do plan to provide third-party vehicle access in all over the world, not just in Europe, where our original pilot was. And we are working on solutions in North America, which is a little bit more problematic with our connector being different than others. But we are moving in that direction. I don't know if you want to add.
Yeah, I think there's nothing more to be said on that front. We want to do the right thing with respect to the whole system.
Mm-hmm. And we're going faster on adding chargers.
Absolutely.
Right? With the growth of the cars that we're producing and then anticipating what Drew is discussing, overall charger capacity is really important. And so the pace of our investments in supercharging has accelerated.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's helpful. And for my second question, could you share any more details on Tesla insurance in particular as you're rolling it out in more states? Are there any metrics you can share on what take rates have been like, and how do profitability margins on the insurance offering compare to the corporate average? Thank you.
So we just launched Tesla Insurance for real-time insurance in Virginia, Colorado, and Oregon earlier this week. Maybe one stat that I'll share. So Texas is our longest standing real-time insurance market. But based upon the information that we have, Tesla is the second largest insurer of Teslas in the state of Texas. And possibly by the end of this quarter, maybe early next quarter, we'll be the largest insurer of Teslas. And so, the customer reception to this has been quite positive. And I was reading social media on Monday after we launched in the 3 new states. A lot of folks were reporting their stories of saving quite substantial amounts of money relative to their previous insurance. And so we're quite encouraged by that, and we're working as quickly as we can to get to 80% of customers having access to a Tesla insurance product by the end of this year in the United States, at which point we'll pivot our attention to expansion outside of the US. The other thing I'll say on insurance is with these 3 new states, the model is different because we are now the underwriter and we are also now holding the risk. And so with those states, we are a fully vertically integrated provider of insurance from systems and financials. With respect to the financials of the program, it's still very early. And so, as the program gets more scale, happy to share more information on that.
And one side note is that we are seeing that having real-time feedback for driving habits is actually resulting in Tesla owners driving the cars in a safer way. So, because they can see they get real-time feedback on, okay, this is affecting my insurance rate or it isn't, and so when people see a real-time score and realize, oh, if I make the following changes in my driving habits, then I pay less in insurance, then they have a very a real-time feedback loop for safer driving and an incentive to do so. So it is actually what we're seeing is it is causing people to drive their cars in a safer manner, which is also not good.
It's safer on average, what we see in the data, to Elon's point, and premiums are lower. We see that in the take rate data. We have extremely high retention for customers who experience the product. And I think I've talked about this in the past, but this has become a real passion program for us.
Yeah.
For these benefits, it's bigger than just the economics. We're trying to do a good thing here for our customers, save people money, and make the roads a little bit safer.
Yeah, I think it improves just overall macroeconomic efficiency It's also a feedback loop for Tesla because we see if there is a crash, large or small, like we sort of see exactly what that cost, and now we think about how can we change the design of the car or the software in order to minimize the probability of that accident. Because most accidents are minor, but how do we have those accidents occur less frequently, and how do we make the repair associated with that accident super fast? Like aspirationally, it'd be like same day repair for a collision. Which is just night and day difference compared to sometimes having to wait for a month while insurance claims are settled and figured out, and because Tesla is also doing collision repair.
But yeah, the feedback loop is instant.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, we do claims management in-house. And so we receive the notification that there's an accident. We work to prepare the estimate. And we can, with the support of our customers, use our collision centers to do the repair.
Yeah.
And so it's, full end-to-end visibility and all of that. To Elon's point, we can then identify areas of cost inefficiency, feed those back to engineering teams or elsewhere, software teams, actually improve the product, which lowers the cost of insurance, improves reliability of the product. So it's a full circle.
Yeah, and it's like basically the customer experience is just vastly better because if there's an accident, there's no argument. We repair it immediately, and this is as compared to arguing with an insurance company and then a claims adjuster and then a collision repair center, and this can be a nightmare basically. So we want to try to turn a nightmare into a dream with Tesla Insurance.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have this quarter. So thank you very much for all your great questions, and we'll speak to you again in 3 months.
Thank you.
Howdy, gang. Oh, let me turn this down. Everybody there? Everybody there? Oh, that was work. That was properly work. Fun, though. Fun, though. I always have fun with you guys. Big thanks to my Patreons, as always. You know the deal. Anything we want to discuss before we go? Jeff, you should definitely look at the cost of Tesla Insurance. Why not? Any comments on the new camera and lighting setup? Is it good? Is it bad? I'm using the real camera. It's a lot more fiddly than a webcam, but it looks fantastic, I think. Yeah, Jeff, lots of great news there, indeed. Well, that means no shareholder meeting until late July. Yeah, that could be. That could be. Yeah. We have fun. Who will be the Flo/Gecko for Tesla Insurance? Well, I assume either the Hedgehog or the little Robo-Dog on dog mode. Good, good. Thank you guys for the feedback on the camera. Yeah. Yeah, we have fun. Yeah. Yeah. Busy day. Stressful day. A lot going on. A lot going on behind the scenes that I'm not talking about for various reasons, but that's all right. Drama. Drama. Yeah, Jonathan, Goldman Sachs. That's the name of the analyst firm, right? I thought that's what it's called. I still have my shares with JP Morgan Chase, which is ridiculous because every time it goes back, every time it crosses $100,000 threshold, phone, and they're like, come in for a tune-up. We'd really like to sell you something that you don't need and don't want. Because JP Morgan Chase is not a fiduciary. They are not legally obligated to look out for their customers' best interests. And that's a good thing because they don't. They definitely don't. Years ago, I went into a branch and said, I don't know what my holdings are in, but I'd like to just kind of sell them all and put it in an index fund. And the guy was like, no, man. You need to put them in this mutual fund that pays me a fat commission. And he was ready to sell me out of, you know what it turned out I had? I already had an index fund. He was going to sell me out of the thing that I already had, that I was asking for, to put me into something that puts money in his pocket. And I was not impressed. Yeah. Thank you, Ninja and Rib, for saying you're looking forward to my next videos breaking all this down. I don't know how much there is to break down. It's all good news. It's all good news. They're keeping their cost of goods sold in check, which is surprising considering the climate. The big increases in prices that we've seen recently have not fully been realized. A lot of those are for orders that won't be hitting the streets until the end of the year. And that's part of the reason for the price increases, is they have to anticipate what those prices are going to be in 8 to 10 months. So it's not just important to know what your cost is today, because you could be upside down on them by the time they're actually ready to be delivered. So, and then once the supply chain is normalized again, I believe we will see costs coming down, and margins maintaining high levels, if not even increasing a bit. They could very well increase a bit. Jeff says banks are evil. I was a banker 20 plus years ago, and at the time I would have said no, they're not. But now banks have changed, man. Seems like the real story is still, when will the other companies try to relieve the damn problem? The demand problem. Either way, I hope soon. I hope there continues to be more and more compelling products offered by everyone. What I really need, I'm already spinning, love it. Yes, I am. What I need to see is those other companies producing in serious volume, so that we know that they're not loss leaders, that these are their actual real products. Yeah, credit unions are far superior. Yes, Jeff, for my everyday banking, I have 2 accounts. I have one that was a bank that was just like a mile from my house, that had, I want to say 3 or 4 branches. And now they just have 1 branch. But I got a bunch of auto pay stuff set up, so I still use it even though it's 3 hours from where I live now. And the other one is a credit union, which was down the street from my last house and isn't even in this city. So I should deal with that. But credit unions have this sharing agreement where you can go into their branches and do your transactions there, which I didn't know about until like a few months ago. Well, I appreciate the kind words, Ninja and Rib, about my analysis. I spend a lot of time doing this, and part of the reason for the channel was I was already following it so obsessively. Might as well make a video, might as well share it. I would share it on different forums and get positive feedback, sometimes negative feedback that I deserved. Yeah, that will bring down the Tesla prices when others get their acts together. So in the short term, it won't. If somebody else was able to magically make a really compelling $30,000 car, that would not allow Tesla to reduce their prices significantly, because they know what their product costs to make, and it costs more than that. But in order for Volkswagen or Mini or whoever to make good, cheap EVs, the whole supply chain's got to get sorted out. And that's going to take a little while. It's going to take a while. Why is it taking so long? If you had told me before the shutdown that it would take years to get the supply chain back up to speed, I would have not believed you. So many plot points we saw in Hollywood that were just ridiculous and unbelievable are now just part of life, man. They're just how it works, which is... Surely they wouldn't run towards the zombie horde. Surely they wouldn't get split up and leave the cabin to find the killer. These things, man, I tell you. Yeah. Credit unions' ATMs also share. Yeah, I don't have an ATM card. I run everything. I've got 2 different rewards things that I use for everything. One is PayPal with a cashback. The other's the Amex, so I can get them sweet, sweet miles. If only people accepted it more widely. Supply chain issues for the next 2 years is Jeff's guess. Ship stuck in Suez. It'll take, and Corey believes it'll take until 2030 until it gets better. That's quite possible. That's quite possible. There are a lot of factors to consider. Just getting all those empty shipping containers out of the ports seems pretty darn critical. And there's no real way to get them back to Asia, for example, because the ships are already going back full of empties. There's no room to put more empties on. What are we going to do, build new ships? No, we're probably going to end up scrapping all those containers. Get them out. Yeah. Yeah. Any questions? What did I miss or misunderstand? Yeah. If you're catching this on the replay, what are you doing here, man? It's over. We're on 2 hours and 45 minutes. That's how long I've been sitting in this chair. I'm getting thrombosis, I'm sure. So awesome. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I enjoy doing this. Yeah. Got a lot of work to get done today. It'll be fun. If I missed anything, leave it in them comments below. Smack the thummy thing, subscribe if you didn't. Yeah, you guys are all subscribed. You're all here. Stay tuned. Stay juicy. Can't wait to hear from you clever robots. All upons that flippity flop. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Ninja and Rib. Thanks to everyone else who hung out. Yeah. MD Hofstee, we will talk soon. Yeah, don't die. Trying to not. Doing my best. I could do better. All right. Take care, you guys.